This chapter is over an hour and 16 minutes long, but I do think it's interesting as speculation. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. I won't put a whole bunch of comments on it, but I will point out things that are similar so that maybe it might make some sense. But there won't be any other comments. Okay. Anyway, Kolbrin Bible, Book 5, Chapter 34. It seems to cover the whole 18th dynasty. And the 18th dynasty is classified as the first dynasty of the New Kingdom period. It boasts several of Egypt's most famous pharaohs, including Tutankhamun, the Thutmose dynasty for the 4 pharaohs named Thutmose. Its famous pharaohs of that dynasty include Hatshepsut, Akhnaten, his queen Nefertiti, and then there was King Nefertiti, which I assume they believe is the iconic Queen Nefertiti. MAN 3460, Akhnaten, Pharaoh of Egypt, was a strange mixture of goodness and wickedness, both carried to their extreme. I know not what his form will be in the place where the spirit stands forth in its true aspect. Certainly, we are taught that goodness cannot entirely obliterate the evil effects of wickedness. Yet, how much was the king really to blame? How much can be laid at the door of his affliction? How much apportioned to the demons in his limbs? How much to the dark ones that possessed him? These things are beyond judgment by mere mortal men. They can be properly dealt with only by a higher judge and infallible reader of hearts. MAN 3461. Although it had been accepted that the kindred of the pharaoh could intermarry, any union between parent and child was absolutely forbidden. This law from days long past was still binding, though the law which decreed that anyone of royal blood, suffering a demon-induced deformity, or becoming possessed by a dark one, should be given the drought of death, was no longer enforced. This proves how evil ensues when old and trusted laws established by the wise ones of old are cast aside. It is folly to thoughtlessly discard that which has ever served well. MAN 3462. Now, when Pharaoh took Akhnaten a grievous wickedness, the people murmured, but none arose among them to do more, for such is not the custom of the land. Tawi, of the great and good, who had lapsed into but one form of wickedness, was no longer there to restrain him, nor in all probability could she have done anything, for he was Pharaoh. But when it came to the ears of Pharoah, he took himself into the wilderness and fasted there for 7 days. He then returned and gained audience with Akhnaten. MAN 3463. Pharoah went before Pharaoh, and there in the midst of his court he denounced him. These were the words issuing from the mouth of Pharoah, as set down by the attending scribe. O great and mighty Pharaoh, where once the storm wind raged, there is now a gentle breeze. Where once the diligent shepherd stood, now a musician sits and idly plays. The land is no more as it was, and no man remains content within his dwelling. The north wind has ceased to enter the land, and the south wind eats it up. A heavy hand lies on the hearts of men, and their limbs are sluggish. They are languid, and move no longer, as once they did. Wherefore has all this come about? The people asked. And I answer them truly, it is because the protective power has departed from the blood of the pharaoh. It is because of the inequity in the palace. This is a time of woe. These things I have spoken before the eyes and ears of Pharaoh, beyond the palace gates. Yet it is not in me to leave them unsaid before the face of the king himself. Where is the great one who sets goodness in the place of wickedness? Where is he who replaces injustice with justice? Who hears the cry of the lowly? Who causes right to prevail in the land? Where is he? I looked, and I look in vain. I see only one who has defiled the protective treasures, the glory of Egypt with iniquity. I see only one who has polluted the pure stream with the sewage of evil, who has succumbed to the ultimate in wickedness. This I see, as all men see it. But I am one who sees more. I see an Egypt gone down into dust. I see plague and death stalking the streets. I see the fertile black waters turned back on themselves. I see the black land buried beneath the sand. I see grim-faced men coming from out of the east to stamp the land flat in blood. I see the dread things of the past recurring. I see desolation spread out on every side. Woe to you, great Pharaoh. Woe to the land of Egypt. Goodness lies dying beneath the triumphant foot of evil. Virtue is betrayed into the foul hands of loathsome lust, her despairing cry unanswered by any coming to her aid. Wickedness walks unhampered through the cities, and wrongdoing is seen on every side. Woeful are these days, and doomed are those who endure them. What does the great light shining forth from the palace conceal? Sacred mysteries or secret sins? Then the arm of Pharaoh stretched forth to stop the mouth of Pharoah, and it was stopped. He was led forth, and whips were laid on his back, and he was placed within a dungeon. MAN 3464. The events that followed remain within a shadow, and none knows the truth. For it was a time of confusion. Akhnaten probably died of poison administered by her own hand, as was befitting. Her tomb is known, for she was not unhonored. Some say the same potion slew the king, but others that he died of a dark demon within the heart. It seems that the poison was not a quick one, and while Akhnaten died in her chamber after pledging of the king was made, he fell forward with an issue of blood from his mouth. His spirit was heard in his throat. Thus, it does not appear that they were slain with the one cup. It is unlikely that Akhnaten died by any hand other than her own, though this is said. MAN 3465. Some say the king died after being carried to his chamber. Others that he recovered, but the truth is unknown. For at this time the signal was given, and the people arose in the streets. The new worship, which nevertheless was an outgrowth from the bulb of truth, died away as the growth dies back on an onion. But like an onion, the bulb remained. The new worship was not unwelcome in the land of Egypt, and would have survived had not its founder led an impure life. The hostility by priests of the other forms of worship would not alone have sufficed to extinguish its light. It was the maggot in the heart of the flower he raised that caused it to fall apart. To establish a pure form of worship and beliefs, its founder must also be pure of hands and heart. MAN 3466. Whatever happened, Akhnaten was never placed within the tomb. He had prepared for himself. Some say because Pharoah cursed it, but this I doubt. I know of such a curse, but I do not suppose Pharoah would have used it. Some say Pharaoh was buried with his wife, but who knows the name of the woman in whose tomb he is said to lay? I think, however, it is more likely that he is a tombless wanderer, which is not so strange when the record is considered fully. As told, it is not beyond belief that such a fate could befall even a pharaoh, and does accord with the laws of olden days. The next pharaoh married his sister, conceived in wickedness, and therefore died while yet young. MAN 3467. The predictions of Pharoah were averted by the happenings in the land, happenings that purified it during the days of Pharaoh's short-lived successor. Then came a great one to rule the land, and peace and prosperity returned. Of his times this is written. Be joyful, O people, for a time of gladness has descended upon the whole land. A righteous and royal king has been set over us, one truly favored in the eyes of the great ones. The waters rise and fall in moderation. The days are long and productive. The hours of night are measured and restful. The moon maintains her appointed seasons, and the sunship steers a straight course. The bright torch of heaven burns steadily, and the stars retain their stations. Once more, Men must qualify by goodness for the right to govern and to hold official positions. All is well with the land. If this could be but written of these days.